Clara Brennan's knees hit the frozen auction yard. Her wedding ring, thin and worn, caught the winter light as she held it toward the crowd. 3 days, she whispered, voice cracking. My children haven't eaten in 3 days. Will anyone buy this? Please. The auctioneer's hammer froze mid-swing. 200 faces stared. No one moved. Then boots crunched through snow, heavy, deliberate. Elijah Darrow, the biggest rancher in Pecos County, stopped 3 feet from where she knelt. His shadow fell across her like a judgment. If you want to know what happens next, subscribe to my channel and stay until the end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. The wind off the Davis Mountains cut through Clara's shawl like it wasn't there. February 1878, and the cold hadn't broken in 37 days. She'd counted every one. Elijah Darrow didn't offer his hand, didn't speak, just stood there 6'4" of weathered leather and silence, looking down at her like she was something the storm dragged in. She supposed she was. Mrs. Brennan? His voice came low, rough as gravel in a dry creek bed. Get up. I can't. Her fingers had gone white around the ring. Not until someone... Get up. He said it the same way. No louder. No softer. Like he had all the time in the world and she was wasting it. Clara's legs shook as she pushed herself to standing. The crowd had gone quiet. She could feel their eyes, the women from church, the shopkeepers, the ranchers' wives, who'd stopped inviting her to Quilting Bees 3 months ago. Let them look. How much? She held the ring higher. Her hand trembled. It's real gold. My husband, my late husband, he paid $12 for it in San Antonio. Elijah's jaw tightened. The scar along his right arm, the one that ran from wrist to elbow, disappeared under his coat sleeve as he crossed his arms. That ring ain't worth a hot meal in weather like this. You know that. Then what is... Her voice cracked open, and something raw spilled out. Tell me, Mr. Darrow, what do I have that's worth anything to anyone? The crowd shifted. Someone coughed. A woman whispered something to her neighbor, loud enough for Clara to catch the word shameful. Elijah heard it too. His head turned slow toward the sound. The whispering stopped. Caleb. He spoke to the auctioneer without looking at him. Her cattle. You got 'em marked for sale? Caleb Thornton fumbled with his ledger. Yes, sir. Forehead. Scheduled for unschedule 'em. But Mr. Kingsley said, I don't care what Kingsley said. Elijah's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Those cattle are unfit, underweight, winter-starved. You sell 'em now, you'll kill 'em, and whoever buys 'em loses money. Mark 'em unfit. Do it today. Caleb's pen scratched across paper. Yes, sir. Clara stared at Elijah. Her throat had closed around something she couldn't swallow. I didn't ask for charity. Good, 'cause I ain't offering any. He turned to face her fully. His eyes were gray-pale as the sky before a blizzard. Your cattle need spring grass. Another month, maybe 6 weeks. This buys you time. That's all. Time for what? He didn't answer, just looked past her toward the edge of the crowd where 2 small figures huddled against a hitching post. Tobias, 10 years old, trying to look brave. Emmeline, 7, her face buried in her brother's coat. Clara's heart seized. Toby! Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Take your sister to Mrs. Holloway's store. Wait for me there. The boy's eyes darted to Elijah. Something flickered there, fear maybe, or hope, or both, before he grabbed Emmy's hand and pulled her through the crowd. When Clara turned back, Elijah was already walking away. Mr. Darrow. He stopped. Didn't turn. Why? For a long moment he said nothing. Snow began to fall soft and thick, catching in his hair on his shoulders. Your husband saved my life once. During the Comanche raid back in '71. Pulled me out from under my horse when I couldn't move. He spoke to the falling snow, not to her. I owed him. Now I don't. He walked on. The crowd parted for him like water around a stone. Clara stood alone in the auction yard, her husband's ring still clutched in her frozen fingers. Oh. The mercantile smelled of coffee and dried beans and something else warmth. Clara hadn't felt warm in weeks. Prudence Holloway looked up from behind the counter. 58 years old, silver hair pulled back tight, eyes that had seen everything and judged most of it wanting. "Children are in the back," she said. "Fed 'em soup and bread. They ate like they hadn't seen food in a month." 3 days. Close enough. Prudy set down her pen. "Heard what happened at the auction. The whole town's talking." Clara's cheeks burned. "I imagine they are." Elijah Darrow speaking up for the Brennan widow. Prudy's voice carried no judgment, just fact. "That's news. Bigger news than Marshall Kingsley trying to foreclose on your land." Clara's head snapped up. "How do you know about that?" "Honey, there ain't a soul in this county doesn't know." Prudy moved around the counter, pulled out a chair. "Sit. You look like you're about to fall over." Clara sat. Her legs gave out the moment the chair took her weight. "Marshall came to see me," she said. 8 days ago. Said Samuel owed the bank $1,400. Said if I couldn't pay by April, the land—" Samuel didn't owe Marshall Kingsley a bent nickel. Clara's breath caught. "What?" Prudy leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "My husband Hiram, God rest him, was clerk of courts for 18 years. Kept copies of every document that passed through his hands, every deed, every note, every contract." She paused. "Including your husband's. Samuel's deed, signed, witnessed, and notarized, December 1874. Samuel James Brennan and Clara Jane Brennan, joint proprietors. 200 acres, Section 12, along the Pecos." Prudy's eyes were sharp. "No liens, no debts, and no Marshall Kingsley anywhere on it." Clara's hands had started shaking again. "But Marshall showed me a document. It had Samuel's name." "I'm sure it did." Prudy's mouth pressed thin. "Marshall Kingsley's been buying up land along that river for 2 years now. Every widow, every struggling farmer, every family that hits hard times, he swoops in with his bank papers and his foreclosure notices." She shook her head. "Your land sits right where the railroad wants to run their new spur. Water rights alone make it worth $3,000, maybe more." The room tilted. Clara gripped the edge of the chair. "He's trying to steal it. He's been stealing it. From folks who don't know any better, who can't afford lawyers, who don't have 18 years of Hiram Holloway's files sitting in a back room." Prudy straightened. "You, Mrs. Brennan, are not one of those folks. Not anymore." Clara looked toward the back of the store where she could hear Toby's voice, low and serious, explaining something to Emmy. Probably telling her everything would be fine. Probably lying. "Why are you helping me?" Prudy was quiet for a moment. "Hiram asked me to. Before he died. Said Marshall Kingsley was a snake, and someday that snake would bite someone who deserved better." She met Clara's eyes. "I've been waiting 3 years to step on his head." The Brennan homestead sat 2 miles outside town, tucked into a bend of the Pecos, where cottonwoods grew thick along the banks. In summer, it was beautiful. In February, with snow piling against the door and the wind howling through gaps in the walls, it was barely shelter. Clara pushed through the door, Toby and Emmy trailing behind her. The fire had died while they were gone. The cabin was as cold inside as out. "Toby, get the kindling. Emmy, check on the chickens." Both children moved without question. They'd learned these past 8 months not to ask questions when Mama's voice got that edge to it. Clara stood at the table staring at the document Marshall Kingsley had left behind. The paper was heavy, official-looking, stamped with the bank's seal. At the bottom, 2 signatures, Samuel James Brennan, and beneath it, Marshall Wade Kingsley, co-proprietor. Her stomach turned. She knew Samuel's handwriting, had watched him practice it by lamplight, tongue between his teeth, determined to get the loops just right. The signature on this paper was close, almost right. But the tail of the S was wrong, too short, too careful. Samuel always swept it long, like he was signing with a flourish, even when he was just marking a feed receipt. This wasn't Samuel's hand. The door banged open. Clara spun, hand flying to her chest. Marshal Kingsley filled the doorway. Snow dusted his shoulders, his black coat, the brim of his hat. In his right hand, he held a silver pen. He turned it slowly, catching the dim light. Mrs. Brennan. He stepped inside without waiting for permission. His boots left wet prints on the swept floor. I heard about your display at the auction. Clara moved to put the table between them. You're not welcome here. I'm trying to help you. His voice was smooth, reasonable, the voice of a man used to being believed. That scene today, begging in public, offering your wedding ring to strangers, it doesn't reflect well on you. People are talking about your stability, your ability to care for those children. Her blood went cold. Get out. Clara. He said her name like he had a right to it. I understand grief. I do. But Samuel would want you to be practical. He'd want you to take my offer and start fresh somewhere easier. Your offer is theft. Marshall's expression didn't change. My offer is $200 for 200 acres. That's generous considering the circumstances. The circumstances being that you forged my husband's name on a document that doesn't exist. Something flickered behind his eyes. Quick, dangerous, gone. That's a serious accusation, Mrs. Brennan, one you'd need proof to make. He took a step closer. The silver pen caught the light again. Do you have proof? Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. She thought of Prudy's words, 18 years of files, of every deed, every contract. I might. Marshall studied her face for a long moment. Then he smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. April 15th. That's your deadline. Judge Crawford rides circuit through here every spring. If you can't pay what your husband owed by then, Samuel didn't owe you anything. Then the land reverts to the bank, my bank. He moved toward the door, paused with his hand on the frame. And Clara. Those children of yours. Tobias is strong for his age, good worker. There are families who'd take him in, give him opportunities you can't provide. And Emmeline, don't. The word came out raw, ragged. Don't you dare speak their names. Marshall's smile widened. Think about it. That's all I ask. He tipped his hat. Ma'am. The door closed behind him. His footsteps faded into the wind. Clara stood frozen, her whole body shaking. Not from cold. Mama? She turned. Toby stood in the doorway to the back room, kindling clutched to his chest. His face was pale. I heard. His voice cracked. He wants to take us away. Clara crossed to him, pulled him close. The kindling scattered across the floor. She didn't care. He won't. But he said, I don't care what he said. She held him tighter. Felt his ribs through his shirt, too sharp, too thin. 8 months of not enough. 8 months of barely surviving. No one is taking you anywhere. You understand me. No one. Emmy appeared behind her brother, eyes wide, clutching her rag doll. Mama! Why was the mean man here? Clara knelt, pulled both children into her arms. The cabin was freezing. The fire was dead. Outside the wind screamed. But her children were here. They were alive. They were hers. He came to tell lies, she said. And we don't listen to lies. Do we? Emmy shook her head. Toby's jaw tightened. He looked so much like Samuel in that moment that Clara's heart cracked open. What are we going to do, Mama? She thought of Prudy's files, of Elijah Darrow standing in the auction yard speaking her husband's name, of the deed on the table with its forged signature, its stolen claim. We're going to fight. The mission sat at the edge of town, its adobe walls crumbling, its bell tower leaning slightly east. Father Miguel Santos had served here for 32 years. He'd married Samuel and Clara in this church. He'd baptized both their children. Clara found him in the small room behind the altar, sorting through papers with hands that trembled. "Father?" He looked up. His eyes were cloudy, confused for a moment, then clearing. "Clara, child." He rose, took her hands in his. His grip was weak but warm. "I heard about Samuel. I'm so sorry. I meant to visit, but the winter—" "Father, I need your help." She told him. All of it. Marshall's visit, the forged deed, the children's future hanging by a thread. Father Miguel listened, his face growing grave. "The wedding," he said slowly. "December 1874. Yes, I remember. Samuel was so nervous he dropped the ring twice." A ghost of a smile crossed his weathered face. "And the deed signing. The next day, I think. Samuel wanted it done quickly. He was so proud of that land." "Do you have records? The church register, anything that would prove—" "I keep records of every ceremony, every signature." He moved to a trunk in the corner, began rifting through papers. "But Clara, my memory, it isn't what it was. I can't always find things like I used to." "Please, Father, try." He searched. Minutes passed. Clara's hope began to dim. Then Father Miguel made a small sound, pulled out a leather-bound book. The Parish Register, 1874. He opened it, turned pages with shaking fingers. December 15th. Samuel Brennan and Clara Jane Whitmore, married in the sight of God. He looked up, eyes bright. And here the witness signatures. 2 names, Samuel's and— He stopped. "And what, Father?" The old priest's face had gone pale. "Marshall Kingsley." He turned the book toward her. "Marshall Kingsley witnessed your wedding, Clara. His signature is right here." Clara stared at the page, at Marshall's name, clear and damning, written in his own hand. "He knew us," she whispered. "He knew Samuel. He witnessed our marriage." "He did. Then he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows the real deed exists. He knows he forged Samuel's signature." Her voice hardened. "And he's betting I can't prove it." Father Miguel closed the book carefully. "This proves he knew you. It proves he was present at your marriage. But Clara—" He hesitated. "It doesn't prove the deed is false. You'll need the original document, the one Samuel actually signed." "Prudy Holloway says her husband kept copies." "Then go to her. Find that copy." Father Miguel pressed the register into her hands. "And take this. Whatever helps. Whatever you need." Clara clutched the book to her chest. "Thank you, Father." "Clara." His voice stopped her at the door. "Marshall Kingsley is a dangerous man. He has power, friends, money. He won't let you challenge him without a fight." "I know." "Are you prepared for that? For what he might do?" She thought of Toby's pale face, Emmy's wide eyes, the empty stew pot, the frozen cabin, the ring in her pocket worn thin from 12 years of marriage to a man now buried beneath the cottonwoods. "I don't have a choice, Father." She stepped out into the snow. That night, Clara sat at the table after the children had climbed into the loft. The fire crackled, casting shadows across the walls. In front of her, Marshall's forged deed. Father Miguel's parish register. Her own wedding ring placed between them like a question. She opened her journal, the one she'd kept since the day Samuel first brought her to this land. Every day, every detail written down in her careful hand. February 12th, 1878. Marshall Kingsley came today. He spoke of my children like they were livestock to be sold. He looked at my land like it was already his. He doesn't know about Prudy's files. He doesn't know about Father Miguel's register. He thinks I'm just a widow, weak, alone, easy to break. He's wrong. She set down the pen, picked up the ring. Samuel had slipped it on her finger in this very cabin the night after the deed was signed. "Insurance," he'd said. "So you know you belong here, so no one can say you don't." She closed her fist around the gold. Somewhere in this county there was proof. Proof that Samuel had signed the real deed. Proof that Marshall had forged the false one. Proof that this land, this life, this future, it all belonged to her. She would find it. And when she did, Marshall Kingsley would learn what happened when you tried to steal from a mother protecting her children. The knock came at midnight. Clara had fallen asleep at the table, head on her arms, journal open beneath her. The sound jolted her awake. 3 knocks. Sharp. Deliberate. She grabbed Samuel's rifle from above the door. Her hands knew the weight of it, the cold of the barrel. "Who's there?" "Elijah Darrow." She didn't move. "It's midnight, Mr. Darrow." "I know what time it is. Open the door." She hesitated, then slid back the bolt. Elijah stood on the threshold, snow in his hairbreadth fogging in the frozen air. His face was grim. "Marshall Kingsley just left my ranch. Came to ask if I'd testify against you at the hearing. Said you're unstable. Said those children would be better off with proper families." Clara's grip tightened on the rifle. "What did you tell him?" "Told him to get off my land." Elijah's eyes met hers, gray and steady. "Then I came here." "Why?" He was quiet for a moment. The wind howled around the cabin. Inside the fire popped and settled. "Because your husband saved my life," he said finally. "And because Marshall Kingsley's been a snake in this county long enough." He paused. "And because when you knelt in that auction yard begging for your children's lives, you reminded me of someone." "Who?" "My wife." The words came rough, torn. "Martha. She died 5 years ago. Same look in her eyes at the end. Like she'd do anything, sell anything, beg anyone just to keep her family together." Clara's throat closed. "I couldn't save her," Elijah said. "But maybe I can help you." He stepped back. "Prudy Holloway's got files. I'll ride with you tomorrow to find them. And when the judge comes," his jaw set, "I'll stand with you, whatever that means." Clara stood in the doorway, the rifle lowered now, the cold seeping through her nightgown. "Why should I trust you?" "You shouldn't." Elijah turned toward his horse, waiting patient in the snow. "But you don't have many choices left, Mrs. Brennan, and I'm offering you one." He mounted, touched the brim of his hat. "Tomorrow, first light. Be ready." He rode into the darkness. The snow swallowed his tracks. Clara closed the door, leaned against it. In the loft, Toby's voice came small and frightened. "Mama, who was that?" She looked up at her son's face, pale in the darkness. "Someone who might help us." "Can we trust him?" Clara thought of Elijah's eyes, the grief in them, the steel beneath it. "I don't know yet." She moved to the ladder, reached up to touch Toby's cheek. "But tomorrow, we're going to find out." Dawn broke gray and bitter. Clara had been awake for an hour watching the window lighten Samuel's rifle across her lap. The sound of hooves came exactly at first light. She was at the door before Elijah could knock. He sat tall on his black gelding breath, fogging a second horse trailing behind on a lead rope. "Brought you a mount. Figured yours wouldn't make the ride." Clara looked at the mare. Young, healthy, well-fed. Everything her own horse wasn't. "I can't accept." "You're not accepting anything. It's a loan." He nodded toward the cabin. "Children coming?" "They're staying with Father Miguel. I asked him last night." She'd walked them to the mission before dawn. Emmy still half asleep, Toby silent and watchful. The old priest had taken them in without question. Elijah's expression shifted. Something like approval crossed his weathered face. "Smart. Kingsley won't try anything at the church." He extended his hand. "Let's go." Clara hesitated. Then she took his hand and swung up onto the mare. They rode in silence for the first mile. The snow had stopped overnight, leaving the world white and still. Their horses' hooves crunched through the crust, the only sound in the frozen morning. "How long have you known?" Clara finally asked. About what Kingsley's been doing. Elijah didn't look at her. Suspected for years. Knew for certain when he came after my neighbor's widow back in '75. Same pattern. Forged documents. Foreclosure threats. She sold for pennies. 3 months later, Kingsley flipped the land to a cattle company for 10 times what he paid. Why didn't anyone stop him? Who was going to he's the banker, the justice of the peace? He's got half the county in debt to him and the other half scared of him. Elijah's jaw tightened. My wife tried. Martha. She was collecting evidence, talking to other families he'd cheated. Then she got sick and... He stopped. Clara waited. And I gave up, he said finally. Buried the fight along with her. Told myself it wasn't my business anymore. But you came to me last night. I did. Why now? After 5 years. Elijah was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Because you reminded me what she looked like, that last year, when she still thought we could win. He turned to face Clara. I let her down. Let her fight alone while I tended cattle and pretended nothing was wrong. When she died, I told myself I'd do better next time. His eyes held hers. This is next time. They rode on. The road curved toward town, and Prudy Holloway's mercantile appeared in the distance, smoke rising from its chimney. Prudy's husband, Clara said. Hiram, you knew him. Everybody knew Hiram. Honest man, careful man, kept records like his life depended on it. Elijah almost smiled. Used to drive Prudy crazy, all those files, but he always said the truth was in the paperwork. Said you could lie with words, but you couldn't lie with documents. Not if someone was watching. And he was watching Kingsley. From the day Kingsley bought that bank, Hiram never trusted him. Neither did Martha. Elijah reined his horse to a stop outside the mercantile. That's why she started collecting evidence. She and Hiram together, before she got sick. Clara stared at him. Your wife and Prudy's husband were working together. For almost a year. Then Hiram had his heart attack. Martha got the fever 3 months later. His voice went flat. Kingsley got lucky. Both of them gone before they could finish what they started. Or he got something other than lucky. Elijah's eyes sharpened. What are you saying? I'm saying 2 people investigating the same man both died within 3 months of each other. I'm saying that's a lot of coincidence. The words hung in the frozen air. Elijah's face had gone hard as stone. Don't say that to anyone else. Not yet. Not without proof. I know. Clara dismounted, handed him the mare's reins. But I'm thinking it. She pushed through the mercantile door. The bell chimed. Prudy looked up from behind the counter. You're early. Her eyes moved to the window to Elijah waiting outside. And you brought company. He's helping. Prudy studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Come on back. I've been going through Hiram's things since yesterday. Found some files I think you need to see. The back room was chaos. Trunks open, papers scattered across every surface, stacks of ledgers teetering on chairs and tables. Prudy moved through it like she knew exactly where everything was. Hiram organized by year, then by name. Everything from his time as clerk. She pulled a thick folder from a trunk. Brennan, Samuel and Clara, December 1874. Clara's hands trembled as she took the folder. Inside, neatly preserved, lay a single document. The deed. 2 signatures at the bottom. Samuel James Brennan, with its familiar flourish, the S sweeping long and confident. And beside it, Clara Jane Brennan, her maiden name Whitmore included in the proprietor line above. No Marshall Kingsley. No co-proprietor clause. Nothing but what she remembered signing on that cold December morning. Samuel's hand warm on her shoulder, his voice proud as he said, It's ours now. Really ours. This is it, she whispered. This is the original. It's a copy, Prudy corrected. Hiram made copies of everything. The original would have gone to the Territorial Land Office, she paused, or to whoever had access to their files. Kingsley. Kingsley. Prudy's mouth pressed thin. He became Justice of the Peace in '76. That gave him access to every deed, every contract, every piece of paper in this county. My guess, he pulled the originals, destroyed them, filed his own versions. Then this copy is the only proof that your deed ever existed as it should. Prudy placed her hand on Clara's arm. Guard it with your life. Clara looked down at the document. Samuel's handwriting stared back at her. She could almost feel him standing beside her, smell the wood smoke in his hair, hear his voice. It's ours. Really ours. There's more. Prudy's voice pulled her back. Hiram kept notes, a journal like yours. He wrote down everything suspicious, every family Kingsley pressured, every land deal that didn't smell right. Where is it? Prudy hesitated. That's the problem. I've been through every trunk, every box, every drawer. The journal's gone. Clara's heart sank. Gone? Hiram kept it locked in his desk. After he died, I couldn't find the key. I figured I'd break it open eventually, but I never got around to it. Prudy's face tightened. 2 weeks ago, someone broke into the store. Middle of the night. Nothing seemed to be taken, merchandise was untouched. But Hiram's desk was open. The lock was broken. Kingsley. Or someone working for him. Either way, the journal's gone. Prudy moved to a shelf, pulled down a small wooden box. But Hiram was careful. He never kept everything in one place. Said it was insurance. She opened the box. Inside, a collection of loose papers, receipts, notes in Hiram's cramped handwriting. These were hidden in the root cellar. I found them yesterday. She spread the papers across the table. Look at this one. Clara leaned close. A list of names, dates, property descriptions, amounts. Widow Hanson. Section 8, February 1876. Original deed. Hanson, sole proprietor. Filed deed, Hanson and Kingsley co-proprietors. Sale price, $150. Resale to Morrison Cattle Company. $1, $400. Widow Dalton. Section 3, August 1876. Original deed. Dalton, sole proprietor. Filed deed. Dalton and Kingsley co-proprietors. Sale price, $200. Resale to Pacific Rail Survey. $2, $100. The list went on. 8 names, 8 widows, 8 stolen properties. He's been doing this for years. Clara breathed. Over and over. The same pattern. And getting rich off it. Prudy tapped the bottom of the list. Look at the total. Hiram calculated it. Over $12,000 in profit. From land he never owned. From women he cheated. Clara's hands had gone cold. This is proof. This list, your husband's notes, this proves what he's been doing. It proves a pattern. But Clara, Prudy's voice softened. A pattern isn't the same as proof of your specific case. We have Hiram's copy of your deed. We have this list showing Kingsley's history. But Kingsley will claim the copy is a forgery. He'll say Hiram made a mistake. He'll produce his own version and swear it's the original. Then it's my word against his. Unless we find someone who can testify, someone who saw your deed signed, someone whose word a judge would believe. Clara thought of Father Miguel, his clouded eyes, his trembling hands. Father Miguel witnessed the wedding. He might have witnessed the deed signing too, but his memory isn't what it was. I know. Prudy began gathering the papers back into the box. There's one other person. Someone who was definitely there when deeds got signed, who worked in the land office back in '74. Who? Prudy met her eyes. Edgar Coombs, the clerk. He retired 2 years ago. Lives up near the Davis Mountains now in that cabin by Miller's Creek. I know Edgar. Samuel used to buy horses from his brother. Then you know he's honest, careful, and he hates Marshall Kingsley with every bone in his body. Clara frowned. Why? Because Kingsley fired him 2 years ago, right after Hiram died. Prudy's voice hardened. Edgar started asking questions, started noticing that filed deeds didn't match the copies in his records. Kingsley told him to stop looking. Edgar refused. 3 weeks later, he was out of a job. No explanation, no appeal. Clara's pulse quickened. If Edgar has copies of the original deeds, he might. He was as careful as Hiram, maybe more. Prudy handed her the wooden box. Take this, and go find Edgar Coombs. If anyone can help you prove what Kingsley did, it's him. Clara tucked the box under her arm. Prudy, thank you. The older woman's face softened, just for a moment. Don't thank me yet. We haven't won anything. All we've done is find a few pieces of a puzzle that's been scattered for years. She walked Clara to the back door. Be careful. Kingsley has ears everywhere. If he finds out what you're doing. I know. Do you? Prudy's eyes were fierce. This man has stolen from widows, destroyed families, maybe worse. He's not going to let you take it all away without a fight. Clara thought of her children. Toby's pale face, Emmy's frightened eyes. Neither am I. She pushed through the door into the cold. Elijah was waiting both horses, stamping in the snow. Well, Clara held up the box. We have the deed, the real one, and a list of every other widow he's cheated. She mounted the mare. Now we need to find Edgar Coombs. Elijah's eyebrows rose. The old land clerk. He's half a day's ride from here, into the mountains. Then we'd better start riding. They turned their horses toward the Davis Mountains. The sun climbed higher, pale and cold. Behind them, Clara felt the weight of Kingsley's shadow pressing closer with every passing hour. She didn't look back. The trail into the mountains wound through pine and scrub oak snow, lying thick where the sun couldn't reach. They'd been riding for 4 hours when Elijah finally spoke. Tell me about your husband. Clara startled. They'd barely exchanged 10 words since leaving town. What do you want to know? Everything. His voice was matter-of-fact. If I'm going to stand beside you in court, I need to understand what we're fighting for. She rode in silence for a long moment. The trail narrowed, forcing them single file. Samuel was a dreamer, she said finally. Everyone told him that land was worthless, too far from town, too close to Comanche territory, too hard to work. She almost smiled. He didn't listen. Said he could see what it would become. Said the railroad would come eventually, and when it did, that land would be worth more than gold. He was right. He was right about a lot of things. Her throat tightened. And wrong about others. He trusted people, believed the best in them even when they didn't deserve it, even when... She stopped. Even when Marshall Kingsley offered to buy the land, 2 years ago, before Samuel died. Clara's hands tightened on the reins. Kingsley came out to the homestead, made a big show of it, said he wanted to help, wanted to take the burden off Samuel's shoulders, offered him $1,000. $1,000 for land worth 3 times that. Samuel knew, turned him down flat, said that land was for his children, said it meant something beyond money. Her voice hardened. Kingsley didn't take it well, smiled and shook Samuel's hand, but there was something in his eyes, something cold. And then Samuel had his accident, 6 months later. Cattle stampede, his horse went down. By the time we found him, she couldn't finish. Elijah was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. You don't think it was an accident? I don't know what I think. Clara's voice broke. Some days, I believe it was just bad luck. Wrong place, wrong time. Other days... She swallowed. Other days, I remember the way Kingsley looked at him, the way he looked at me at the funeral, like he was already planning how to take everything Samuel left behind. Did you tell anyone, the sheriff? What was I going to say? My husband died in a cattle stampede, and I have a feeling about the banker. She shook her head. No one would have believed me. I barely believe myself. They rode on. The trees grew thicker, blocking out the pale sun. The air turned colder. "My wife believed," Elijah said suddenly. "She thought Kingsley was capable of anything. Said a man who would steal from widows wouldn't stop at murder." He paused. "I told her she was being dramatic. Told her to focus on what we could prove. And now I wonder if she was right. About everything." His jaw tightened. "And I wonder if letting her fight alone is what killed her." Clara had no answer for that. They rode in silence until the cabin appeared through the trees. It was small, rough-hewn smoke rising from a crooked chimney. A man stood in the doorway watching them approach. Tall, thin, white-bearded, with eyes that missed nothing. Edgar Coombs. "Elijah Darrow." His voice was like gravel. "Didn't expect to see you up here." "Edgar." Elijah dismounted. "This is Clara Brennan, Samuel's widow." Edgar's eyes sharpened. "I know who she is. Knew Samuel too. Good man. Honest man." He looked at Clara. "I was sorry to hear what happened to him." "Thank you." "I was even sorrier to hear what Kingsley's trying to do to you." He stepped back from the doorway. "Come inside. Coffee's hot, and we've got a lot to talk about." The cabin was sparse but warm. Edgar poured coffee into tin cups, handed them over without ceremony. "I've been expecting you," he said. "Word travels even up here. Heard about the auction. Heard about Kingsley's foreclosure notice." He settled into a chair by the fire. "Heard you've been asking questions." "We need your help," Clara said. "You worked in the land office when Samuel and I signed our deed. You might have been there." "I was there." Edgar's eyes met hers. December 1874. Cold day. Samuel was nervous. Kept checking his pockets for the pen. You were wearing a blue dress, same one you wore to your wedding the day before. Clara's breath caught. "You remember." "I remember everything about that day. It's been eating at me for years." Edgar set down his cup. "I watched Samuel sign that deed. Watched you sign it. Watched Father Miguel witness it. 2 proprietors. Samuel and Clara Brennan. No one else. And Kingsley wasn't there. Didn't arrive until after you'd left. Came in looking for Samuel, said they had business to discuss. I told him he'd missed you by 20 minutes. Edgar's face darkened. He was angry. Tried to hide it, but I saw. That's when I started watching him. "And you noticed things." "Noticed plenty. Deeds that got filed different than how they were signed. Names added. Names removed. Always the same pattern. Always widows. Always land that was worth more than it seemed." He leaned forward. "I started keeping records. Copies of every deed that came through my hands. Notes on every discrepancy. Built a file an inch thick." "Where is it?" Edgar's face fell. "Gone. Same as Hiram Holloway's journal. Kingsley had me fired, and the next day someone broke into this cabin while I was in town. Took everything. Every document. Every note. 2 years of work vanished overnight." Clara's heart sank. "So we have nothing." "Not nothing." Edgar Rose moved to the corner of the cabin. He knelt, pried up a floorboard, reached into the darkness beneath. "I told you. I remember everything. And I learned from Hiram. Never keep everything in one place." He pulled out a metal box rusted at the corners. Inside a stack of papers, yellow with age. "Copies of the copies," he said. "The most important ones, including yours." He handed Clara a document. She looked down. Samuel's signature, her signature, Father Miguel's witness mark. "This matches the copy Prudy gave me." "It should. They're both accurate." Edgar returned to his chair. "But here's what you need to know. I didn't just copy the deeds. I copied Kingsley's forgeries too. Side by side. So anyone could see the difference." He pulled another paper from the stack, laid it beside the first. The signatures were close, but not identical. Samuel's S on Kingsley's version was too short. The flourish on Clara's name was missing entirely. And at the bottom, in fresh ink that didn't match the aging of the paper, Marshall Wade Kingsley, co-proprietor. "You can see it," Edgar said. "The original ink is faded. Kingsley's edition is darker, newer. He didn't even try to match the aging." "Will a judge see it?" "If the judge is honest, yes. If the judge isn't," Edgar's jaw tightened. "That's the other problem. Judge Crawford, the one who rides circuit through here, he owes Kingsley money. A lot of money. His son got into trouble in El Paso, gambling debts. Kingsley paid them off." Clara felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. "So even with proof, Crawford might rule against you. Might say the documents are inconclusive. Might say you forged them, not Kingsley." Edgar's eyes were hard. "That's how Kingsley works. He doesn't just steal. He builds walls around himself. Makes sure that even if someone gets close to the truth, they can't get through." "Then what do we do?" Edgar was quiet for a long moment. The fire crackled. Outside wind rattled the windows. "You make it public," he said finally. "You don't wait for the judge to rule. You bring everything into the open. Every widow he cheated. Every document he forged. Every lie he told. You put it all in front of the whole county and you let them see what he is. He'll deny it. Let him. Denial isn't proof, but evidence is. And when people see your deed next to his forgery, when they see Hiram's list of victims, when they hear me testify about what I watched him do for years," Edgar leaned forward, "they'll believe. They have to." Elijah spoke for the first time since they'd entered the cabin. "That's a dangerous game. Kingsley won't take that lying down. He'll fight back. Hard." "I know." Edgar's eyes moved to Clara. "Are you prepared for that, Mrs. Brennan? For what he might do when he realizes you're going to expose him?" Clara thought of her children. Toby's determination. Emmy's fear. She thought of Samuel lying beneath the cottonwoods, his dreams buried with him. "Yes," she said, "I'm prepared." They left Edgar's cabin with copies of everything. The original deed, Kingsley's forgery, notes comparing the signatures, the ink, the paper. Enough evidence to build a case. Maybe enough to win one. The ride back took longer. The sun set behind the mountains, turning the sky red and gold. By the time they reached the valley, stars were beginning to appear. "We should stop," Elijah said. "Rest the horses. Continue at first light. I need to get back to my children. They're safe with Father Miguel. You won't do them any good if you ride your horse into the ground." He nodded toward a stand of trees ahead. "There's a line cabin there. Old, but it's got a roof and a fireplace. We can shelter for a few hours." Clara hesitated, then nodded. The cabin was small, barely more than 4 walls and a hearth. But Elijah built a fire, and the warmth seeped into Clara's bones. She sat on the floor, her back against the wall. Edgar's documents spread before her. Elijah settled across from her feeding sticks into the flames. "You should sleep," he said. "Can't." She picked up Kingsley's forged deed, held it to the firelight. "I keep thinking about what Edgar said, about Judge Crawford, about how Kingsley's built walls around himself." "Walls can be broken." "Can they?" She set the paper down. "He's been doing this for years, stealing from people who couldn't fight back. And no one stopped him. No one even tried. Hiram tried. Martha tried." Elijah's voice was quiet. "They both died before they could finish." Clara looked at him across the fire. His face was half in shadow, the scar on his arm visible where his sleeve had ridden up. "You think he killed them?" It wasn't a question. Elijah was silent for a long moment. "I think Hiram had a heart attack 3 days after he confronted Kingsley about the forged deeds. I think Martha got sick 6 weeks after she started collecting evidence. I think both of them were healthy before they started asking questions and dead before they could finish. But you can't prove it." "No." His jaw tightened. "I can't prove any of it. Just like I can't prove what happened to Samuel. Just like I can't prove that every time someone gets close to exposing Kingsley, something convenient happens. Clara wrapped her arms around her knees. The fire crackled. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "Really, not because of Samuel, not because of your wife. Why?" Elijah didn't answer immediately. He stared into the flames, his face unreadable. "Because I'm tired," he said finally. "Tired of watching him win. Tired of knowing the truth and doing nothing about it." He looked at her. "And because when I saw you in that auction yard on your knees begging strangers to buy your ring so your children could eat." He stopped. His voice had gone rough. "I saw Martha. I saw every widow he's ever cheated. I saw everyone who ever trusted the wrong person and lost everything because of it." He leaned forward. "And I decided I was done being tired, done watching, done letting him win." Clara held his gaze. The firelight danced between them. "Thank you," she said. "Don't thank me yet." He rose, moved toward the door. "Get some sleep. We've got a long fight ahead." She lay down on the rough floor, her coat beneath her head. Through the window, stars burned cold and bright. Tomorrow, she would return to her children. Tomorrow, she would begin gathering allies, building her case, preparing for the hearing. But tonight in this cabin in the mountains, she allowed herself one moment of something that felt almost like hope. They reached town just after dawn. The mercantile was already open smoke rising from its chimney. But something was wrong. A crowd had gathered outside, voices raised, movement. Clara kicked her horse forward. Elijah followed. She pushed through the crowd and her blood went cold. The front window was shattered. Glass scattered across the snow. Inside, shelves had been overturned. Merchandise lay scattered across the floor. And on the wall, painted in red letters, a foot high: "Some questions are better left unasked." Prudy Holloway stood in the center of the destruction broom in hand, face pale but composed. "He came last night," she said, her voice carrying to the crowd. "Someone did. Didn't see who. Just heard the crash and came running." She met Clara's eyes. "They took everything from the back room. Every document, every file, every piece of paper Hiram ever kept." Clara's heart stopped. The deed, the list. Prudy's jaw tightened. "Gone. All of it. Whatever you took yesterday, that's all that's left." The crowd murmured. Clara felt their eyes on her, accusing, curious, afraid. "Mrs. Brennan." A voice cut through the noise. She turned. Marshal Kingsley stood at the edge of the crowd, flanked by Deputy Colt Jessup. His face was arranged in careful concern. "I heard about this terrible vandalism. So distressing." He moved closer, his silver pen catching the morning light. "I hope you're not involved in whatever mischief prompted this." Clara's hands curled into fists. "You know exactly who's responsible." "I'm sure I don't know what you mean." His smile didn't waver. "But I should mention Judge Crawford arrived last night, early for the circuit. He's expressed interest in moving up your hearing. Says he wants to resolve these property disputes quickly." He paused. "Less uncertainty for everyone involved." Clara's blood pounded in her ears. "When?" "3 days from now. Sunday. After church." Kingsley tipped his hat. "I'd suggest you spend that time getting your affairs in order, Mrs. Brennan. These things rarely go well for people who make unfounded accusations." He turned and walked away. The crowd parted for him. Clara stood in the snow, surrounded by broken glass and spilled flour, feeling the walls closing in. 3 days. She had 3 days to save everything that mattered. And somewhere in this town, her children were waiting, trusting her to protect them. She clutched Edgar's documents against her chest. It wasn't over. Not yet. Clara ran. Through the crowd, past the shattered glass, toward the mission at the edge of town. Her boots slipped on the icy street. She didn't slow down. Father Miguel met her at the door, his face grave. "They're safe," he said before she could speak. Both of them. Asleep in the back room. Clara's knees nearly buckled. She braced herself against the doorframe, gasping. Someone came here last night, Father Miguel continued. Knocked on the door around midnight, asked if I was sheltering the Brennan children. Who? I didn't recognize the voice. When I opened the door, no one was there. The old priest's hands trembled as he touched her arm. Clara, what's happening? She told him. The break-in at Prudy's. The stolen documents. Kingsley's visit. The hearing moved up to Sunday. Father Miguel crossed himself. 3 days. That's not enough time. It has to be. Clara moved past him toward the back room. She needed to see her children. Needed to touch them, hold them, know they were real and safe and here. Toby was awake when she pushed through the door. He sat up on the narrow cot, eyes alert, body tense. Mama, what's wrong? Nothing. The lie came automatically. Everything's fine. You're crying. Was she? Clara touched her face. Her fingers came away wet. She crossed to the cot, pulled Toby into her arms. He was stiff at first, then softened, his thin arms wrapping around her. Something happened, he said against her shoulder. I can tell. Yes. She couldn't lie to him, not anymore. Something happened, but we're going to be okay. How do you know? Clara pulled back, looked into her son's face. Samuel's eyes stared back at her. Samuel's jaw. Samuel's stubborn determination. Because I won't let anything hurt you. Either of you. She glanced at Emmy, still sleeping on the other cot, her rag doll clutched to her chest. No matter what happens, I will keep you safe. Uncle Marshall. He's not your uncle. He's nothing to us. Clara's voice hardened. And he's not going to win. Toby studied her face. You found something. In the mountains. I can tell. Smart boy. Too smart for his own good. I found proof, she said quietly, that your father signed our deed the right way. That Kingsley changed it. That he's been lying. Will the judge believe you? The question cut deep. Clara thought of what Edgar had said about Judge Crawford, about the gambling debts, about the walls Kingsley had built. I don't know, she admitted, but I'm going to try. Toby's jaw tightened. That look again. The one that made him seem 20 years older than 10. I want to help. You are helping. By staying safe. By watching your sister. Clara touched his cheek. That's the most important thing you can do. But, Toby? Her voice firmed. I need to know you're here. I need to know you're protected. If I'm worrying about you, I can't focus on fighting Kingsley. Do you understand? He didn't like it. She could see the struggle in his face, but finally he nodded. Yes, ma'am. Good boy. She kissed his forehead. Now get some sleep. I'll be back soon. She found Elijah outside the mission, talking quietly with Father Miguel. They stopped when she approached. Children are safe? Elijah asked. For now. Clara's voice was steady, but her hands shook. We need to move faster. Kingsley knows we have something. That's why he burned Prudy's store. That's why he moved up the hearing. He's scared, Father Miguel said. A scared man is dangerous. He's always been dangerous. Elijah's jaw was set. But you're right. He wouldn't be moving this fast if he wasn't worried. Clara pulled Edgar's documents from inside her coat. This is all we have left. The deed copies. The forgery comparison. Hiram's list of other victims. She looked between the two men. Is it enough? Elijah took the papers, studied them in the morning light. Maybe, if Judge Crawford is honest. Edgar said he isn't. Said Kingsley paid off his son's gambling debts. Father Miguel made a small sound of dismay. That explains why he arrived early. Kingsley summoned him. Then we're finished. Clara's voice cracked. We have proof, but no one who will accept it. Not necessarily. Elijah handed back the documents. A judge can be bought, but a whole town can't. Not easily. What do you mean? I mean we do what Edgar said. We make it public. Elijah's eyes were hard. We don't wait for Crawford to rule in some private chamber. We demand an open hearing, in front of everyone. Make Kingsley answer our accusations where the whole county can hear. He'll never agree to that. He might not have a choice. Texas law says property disputes can be heard publicly if either party requests it. It's meant to prevent corruption. A ghost of a smile crossed Elijah's weathered face. Something tells me Kingsley didn't expect anyone to know that. Hope flickered in Clara's chest. Small. Fragile. But there. How do we request it? We file a motion with the clerk. Since Kingsley fired Edgar, that means Deputy Jessup. He handles court filings now. Jessup works for Kingsley. Jessup owes Kingsley money. That's not the same thing. Elijah turned toward the street. Let me talk to him, man to man, see if there's anything left of his conscience. Clara watched him go. The morning sun had climbed higher, pale and cold. He cares for you, Father Miguel said quietly. Clara startled. What? Elijah, the way he looks at you. The way he's fighting for you. The old priest's eyes were gentle. It's not just about repaying your husband's debt. Father, I'm not judging, child, just observing. He touched her arm. When this is over, when you've won, because you will win, don't push away the people who stood beside you. Sometimes God sends us second chances wrapped in unexpected packages. Clara didn't know how to respond. She was saved by the sound of footsteps. Prudy Holloway appeared around the corner, a bundle under her arm. Her face was still pale, but her eyes were fierce. I've been thinking, she said without preamble, about the files that were stolen, about what else Hiram might have hidden. You said everything was in the back room. Everything I knew about. But Hiram... Prudy paused, choosing her words. Hiram was secretive. Even with me. He said it was for my protection. Said the less I knew, the safer I'd be. What are you thinking? There's a place he used to go, every Sunday afternoon. Said he was checking on his brother's grave up at the old cemetery. But he'd be gone for hours, longer than it takes to visit a grave. Prudy's jaw tightened. I never followed him, never asked. But now I'm wondering. Wondering what? If he had another hiding place, somewhere even Kingsley wouldn't think to look. Clara felt her pulse quicken. Can you find it? I'm going to try. But Clara... Prudy's eyes met hers. If there is something there, and if Kingsley finds out we're looking... I know. Do you... Because this isn't just about land anymore. This is about a man who's killed to protect his secrets. Prudy's voice dropped. Are you ready to die for 200 acres of dirt? Clara thought of Toby's face. Emmy's small hand clutching her doll. Samuel's grave beneath the cottonwoods. I'm ready to die for my children's future, for my husband's memory, for the truth. She met Prudy's gaze. Are you... Prudy was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. I am. Hiram would have wanted me to finish what he started. She tucked the bundle more firmly under her arm. I'll send word if I find anything. Keep those documents safe. They might be all we have. She disappeared down the street. Clara stood alone outside the mission, the weight of everything pressing down on her. 3 days. 3 days to find more evidence, secure a public hearing, and somehow convince a corrupted judge and a frightened town to believe a widow over the richest man in the county. Mama. She turned. Emmy stood in the doorway, sleep-tousled, her rag doll dangling from one hand. Hey, baby. Clara knelt, opened her arms. Emmy ran to her, buried her face in Clara's neck. I had a bad dream, the little girl whispered. The mean man was there. He was taking you away. Clara held her tighter. I'm not going anywhere. I promise. Toby says we might lose our house. Toby worries too much. Clara pulled back, smoothed Emmy's tangled hair. Our house is going to be fine. We're going to be fine. Emmy's eyes were wide, searching. How do you know? Because I have to believe it. Because if I don't, I'll fall apart and never get back up. Because your father built that house with his own hands, Clara said. He put his love into every board, every nail, every beam. That kind of love doesn't just disappear. It stays. It protects. Emmy considered this. Like magic. Like magic. The little girl nodded solemnly. Then, in a voice so quiet, Clara almost missed it. I heard something, Mama. The night Papa died. Clara's heart stopped. What? I was supposed to be sleeping, but I heard voices outside. Papa and another man. Emmy's grip tightened on her doll. They were arguing. The other man said Papa was making a mistake. Said he'd be sorry. Clara could barely breathe. Emmy, did you see who it was? No, it was dark, but... The little girl hesitated. He had a shiny thing on his coat, like a star. A star. A badge. Deputy Jessup. Clara's blood went cold. Baby, have you told anyone else about this? Emmy shook her head. I was scared. And then Papa was gone, and I didn't want to make you sad. Clara pulled her daughter close, her mind racing. Emmy had heard something that connected Kingsley's deputy to Samuel the night before he died. It wasn't proof. A child's memory 7 months old of a voice in the dark, but it was something. You did the right thing telling me, Clara whispered. I'm proud of you. Is it important? It might be. Very important. Clara stood, took Emmy's hand. Let's go inside. Okay. Stay with Father Miguel. I need to talk to someone. She found Elijah at the deputy's office. He emerged as she approached, his face grim. Jessup refused. Said he couldn't file a motion for public hearing without Kingsley's approval. Elijah spat into the dirt. Man's got no spine. Maybe he's got more to hide than we thought. Clara pulled him aside, lowered her voice. Emmy told me something. About the night Samuel died. She told him. The voices. The argument. The shiny thing like a star. Elijah's face went hard as stone. Jessup was at your homestead that night. If Emmy's memory is right. A 7-year-old's memory from 7 months ago. Elijah shook his head. It's not enough. Not for a court. I know, but it means something. It means there's more to Samuel's death than a cattle stampede. Clara's voice shook. It means Kingsley might have... Don't say it. Elijah's hand closed on her arm. Not out loud. Not until we have proof. How do we get proof? Everyone who knew anything is dead. Hiram, Martha, Samuel. Clara felt tears burning. We keep finding pieces, but they don't add up to anything a judge will accept. Then we find more pieces. Elijah's grip gentled. Prudy's looking for Hiram's secret hiding place. Edgar's willing to testify about what he saw at the land office. Father Miguel witnessed your wedding and your deed. And now Emmy is 7 years old. Kingsley will tear her apart if she testifies. She won't have to testify, not directly. But if her memory leads us to something else... Elijah paused. What if Jessup knows more than he's saying? What if he's not just scared of Kingsley but guilty too? Clara thought of the young deputy. His nervous eyes. The way he'd avoided looking at her since Samuel's funeral. You think he was involved? I think a man doesn't refuse a simple filing motion unless he's got something to lose. Elijah's eyes met hers. I think we need to have a different kind of conversation with Deputy Jessup. One that doesn't happen in his office. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we find out what he knows, what he's hiding, and we give him a choice, help us, or go down with Kingsley when this all comes out. Clara hesitated. It felt like a line she shouldn't cross. But then she thought of Emmy's whispered confession, of Samuel lying dead in the grass, of everything Kingsley had taken was still trying to take. How do we find him alone? He drinks at the saloon most nights, gets sloppy when he's had too much. Elijah's mouth twisted. Tonight. After dark. I'll keep him talking while you slip in. He won't expect you. And if he won't talk, then we make sure he knows exactly what we'll tell Judge Crawford if he doesn't." Elijah's voice was flat. "Sometimes the only way to fight a snake is to become one yourself, just for a moment." Clara thought of what she'd told Toby, about not becoming what you fight against, about doing things the right way. But the right way wasn't working. Kingsley had burned Prudy's store, stolen their evidence, moved up the hearing, threatened her children. Maybe the right way was whatever kept her family alive. "Tonight," she said, "after dark." The saloon stank of whiskey and tobacco. Clara stood in the shadows outside, watching through the window as Elijah settled onto a stool beside Deputy Jessup. The deputy was already 3 drinks in. His face was flushed, his movements loose. Elijah ordered a bottle poured for both of them. Clara waited. The night was cold stars bright overhead. From here she could see the road that led to her homestead. 2 miles of darkness. 2 miles of everything she was fighting for. Inside, Elijah leaned close to Jessup. Said something. The deputy's face changed surprise, then fear. Then something like desperation. That was her signal. She pushed through the back door into the narrow hallway that led to the main room. Jessup's back was to her. Elijah's eyes met hers over the deputy's shoulder. "Evening, deputy." Jessup spun on his stool. Whiskey sloshed from his glass. "Mrs. Brennan, what are you—" "We need to talk." Clara moved closer. "About the night my husband died." Jessup's face went white. "I don't know what you mean." "I think you do. My daughter heard you. Outside our cabin. Arguing with Samuel." Clara's voice was steady, even though her hands shook. "She saw your badge in the moonlight." She's a child. She's confused. "Maybe. Or maybe you were there and you know exactly what happened." Clara leaned in. "What did Kingsley send you to do that night? Deputy threaten Samuel, scare him into selling." "I didn't. It wasn't." Jessup's eyes darted to Elijah, then back to Clara. "You don't understand." "Then explain it to me." "I can't. Can't or won't." Jessup's hand shook as he lifted his glass, drained it. "If I talk, he'll kill me. Same as he killed your husband." The words landed like a blow. Clara couldn't breathe. "Say that again." Jessup's eyes filled with something awful. Guilt. Terror. Shame. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I swear to God, I didn't know what he was planning. He sent me to deliver a message. That's all. Tell Samuel one last time to sell or face consequences. I did it. Samuel refused. I left." His voice cracked. "The next morning he was dead. Kingsley killed him. Kingsley paid someone. I don't know who. A drifter, maybe. Someone passing through." Jessup's face crumpled. "I've been carrying it for 7 months. I can't sleep. I can't eat. Every time I see your children—" "You've known this whole time." Clara's voice was hollow. "You've known and you've done nothing. What could I do? He owns this town. He owns the judge. He owns me." Tears streamed down Jessup's face. "I owe him money. My father's medical bills. He paid them, and now I'm trapped. If I talk, he'll destroy everything. My family, my career, my life." Elijah spoke for the first time. "And if you don't talk, he destroys Mrs. Brennan, her children, everything her husband built." Jessup wiped his face. "I know. So choose." Elijah's voice was iron. "Help us bring him down, or go down with him. Because I promise you, one way or another, Marshal Kingsley is going to answer for what he's done. The only question is whether you're standing with us or against us when it happens." The saloon had gone quiet. A few men at other tables were watching, listening. Let them, Clara thought. Let the whole town hear. Jessup looked between them. His throat worked. What do you want me to do? File the motion for public hearing, tomorrow morning. Clara's voice was firm. And when the time comes, tell the truth. All of it. What Kingsley asked you to do, what you saw, what you know. He'll kill me. He might. Or you might finally be free of him. Clara leaned closer. You've been living in his shadow for years, Deputy. Don't you want to know what it feels like to stand in the light? Jessup stared at her. The fight went out of him. Tomorrow, he said. I'll file the motion tomorrow. Clara straightened. Her whole body was trembling. Thank you. She turned and walked out of the saloon into the cold night air. Behind her she heard Elijah's voice, low and steady, continuing to talk to Jessup. Making sure he didn't change his mind, she walked until she reached the edge of town. Then she stopped, leaned against a fence post, and let the tears come. Samuel. Her Samuel. Murdered. She'd suspected. Deep down, she'd known. But hearing it spoken aloud, a hand touched her shoulder. She spun. Elijah stood there, his face soft in the starlight. I'm sorry, he said. About your husband. About all of it. Clara couldn't speak. The grief was too big, too raw. He was a good man. Samuel. I didn't know him well, but I knew that much. Elijah's voice was gentle. He loved you. He loved those children. And he died trying to protect what was yours. It doesn't feel like protection. Clara's voice broke. It feels like absence. Like a hole that never fills. I know. Elijah's hand stayed on her shoulder. Warm. Steady. Grief is like that. It doesn't get smaller. You just learn to build around it. She looked up at him. His eyes were dark, full of something she recognized. He'd lost someone too. He understood. What do we do now? We prepare. Jessup will file the motion. The hearing will be public. And when Sunday comes... Elijah's jaw tightened. We tell the truth. All of it. And we pray that's enough. What if it isn't? Then we fight anyway. Because that's what people like us do. His hand dropped from her shoulder. Go back to the mission. Be with your children. I'll keep watch tonight. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. His voice softened. But I want to. Let me do this, Clara. Let me help. She nodded. Her throat was too tight for words. She walked back through the dark streets toward the mission, toward her children. Behind her she felt Elijah's presence. Watching. Protecting. And somewhere in her shattered heart, something new began to take root. Something that felt almost like hope. The next morning, true to his word, Deputy Jessup filed the motion for public hearing. By noon the whole town knew. And by sunset, Marshal Kingsley came to the mission. Clara saw him through the window. Striding across the yard, his coat billowing, his face twisted with rage. Father Miguel moved to block the door. This is a house of God, Mr. Kingsley. You're not welcome here. Get out of my way, old man. Kingsley's voice was a snarl. I want to talk to the widow. Clara stepped forward. Then talk. Kingsley's eyes found her. The civilized mask was gone. Underneath was something feral. Desperate. You think you've won something. You haven't. A public hearing means nothing. Judge Crawford answers to me. Maybe, but the town doesn't. Clara's voice was steady. They'll hear everything, Marshal. What you did to those widows. What you did to my husband. What you've been doing for years. They won't believe you. You're a grieving woman. Hysterical. Unstable. Then why are you here? Why do you look scared? Kingsley's hand shot out, grabbed her arm. Father Miguel shouted. Clara didn't flinch. Because you should be scared, Kingsley hissed. Because if you walk into that hearing on Sunday, you won't walk out. Not with your children, not with your land, not with anything. Clara wrenched her arm free. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Kingsley stepped back. His composure was returning, but his eyes were still wild. "I've worked too hard, built too much. I won't let a nobody widow tear it down." "You're wrong about one thing." Clara's voice was quiet, dangerous. "I'm not a nobody. I'm Samuel Brennan's wife, mother of his children, owner of his land." She met his eyes. "And I'm going to destroy you." Kingsley stared at her. Something flickered in his face, surprise maybe, or recognition. He'd underestimated her. He was only now realizing how badly. "Sunday," he said. "We'll see who destroys whom." He turned and strode away. Father Miguel rushed to Clara's side. "Are you all right? Did he hurt you?" "No." Clara watched Kingsley's retreating figure. "He's the one who's hurt. He just doesn't know it yet." That night, a rider came to the mission. Prudy Holloway, breathless, her horse lathered with sweat. "I found it," she gasped. "Hiram's hiding place, in the old cemetery behind his brother's headstone, a metal box buried in the ground." Clara's heart leaped. "What's inside?" Prudy reached into her saddlebag, pulled out a leather journal. "Everything. Every transaction Kingsley ever made. Every forgery. Every bribe. Every family he destroyed." She pressed it into Clara's hands. "It's all here, Clara. Everything we need." Clara opened the journal. Page after page of Hiram Holloway's careful handwriting. Names, dates, amounts, witness statements. A complete record of Marshall Kingsley's crimes compiled over years of patient secret work. "Hiram was building a case," Prudy said. "A real one, with evidence that would stand up in any court. Her voice broke. "He just didn't live long enough to use it." Clara looked up. "He did. Through us." She closed the journal. "This is it, Prudy. This is how we win." Prudy's eyes were bright with tears. "Then let's finish what he started." Clara held the journal against her chest. 2 days until Sunday. 2 days until the hearing that would decide everything. But for the first time since Samuel's death, she felt ready. Ready to fight. Ready to win. Ready to bring Marshall Kingsley to his knees. Clara sat at Father Miguel's table. Hiram's journal opened before her, reading by candlelight until her eyes burned. Every page revealed another crime. Another family destroyed. Another life stolen. The widow Hanson lost her farm in February 1876. Her husband had been dead 3 weeks when Kingsley showed up with forged documents. She'd sold for $150. Kingsley resold to a cattle company for $1,400. The widow Dalton, August of the same year. Same pattern, same lies, same theft dressed up in legal language. 8 families in total, 8 widows, 8 stolen futures. And at the bottom of the last page in Hiram's careful script, Samuel Brennan refused to sell. October 1877. MK increasingly agitated, warned SB of consequences. SB stood firm. Must watch this situation closely. Clara's hands trembled on the paper. Hiram had known. He'd seen what was coming. But he'd died before he could warn anyone. A knock at the door made her jump. Elijah entered, snow dusting his shoulders. His face was grim. "We've got trouble." Clara's stomach dropped. "What kind?" "Judge Crawford left town 2 hours ago. Rode out toward the Davis Mountains." Elijah crossed to the table, lowered his voice. "Word is he's meeting with someone, privately. Kingsley." "That's my guess." Elijah's jaw tightened. "Whatever they're planning, they don't want witnesses." Clara looked down at Hiram's journal. All this evidence, all this proof. "And if the judge was already bought, it won't matter," she whispered. "None of it will matter if Crawford's already decided." "Maybe, maybe not." Elijah pulled a chair close, sat across from her. "Crawford's corrupt, but he's not stupid. He knows a public hearing means public scrutiny. If we present evidence he can't explain away, he'll have to rule in your favor or risk his own neck. And if he doesn't care about his neck, then we make sure the whole county knows what he did, and we appeal to the territorial court in Austin." Elijah's eyes held hers. This isn't over, Clara. Not by a long shot. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe. My children are asleep in the next room, she said quietly. Tomorrow they'll watch their mother stand in front of the whole town and accuse the most powerful man in the county of murder, of theft, of everything. Her voice cracked. What if I fail them? Elijah reached across the table. His hand covered hers. Rough, warm, steady. You won't. You don't know that. I know you. His voice softened. I've watched you these past days. Watched you fight when anyone else would have given up. Watched you protect those children with everything you have. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. Samuel chose well when he married you. And tomorrow, the whole county's going to see what he saw. Clara's throat closed. She couldn't speak. The door to the back room creaked open. Toby stood there in his nightshirt, eyes heavy with sleep. Mama, I heard voices. Clara pulled her hand from Elijah's rose to meet her son. It's all right. Go back to bed. I can't sleep. Toby's gaze moved to Elijah, then back to his mother. I keep thinking about tomorrow. Me too. What if the judge doesn't believe us? Clara knelt, took his hands in hers. Then we keep fighting. We appeal. We find another way. But what if... Toby! She squeezed his fingers. Your father used to say that the truth is like water. You can dam it up for a while, but eventually it finds a way through. She managed a small smile. We have the truth on our side. That has to count for something. Toby's eyes searched her face. So much like Samuel. So much weight on shoulders too young to carry it. I want to be there tomorrow, he said. At the hearing. Baby? I'm not a baby. I'm 10. His jaw set. Papa would have wanted me there, standing with you, standing for our family. Clara's heart cracked open. She pulled him close, held him tight. All right, she whispered against his hair. All right, you can come. She felt his body relax. His arms wrapped around her, small but fierce. We're going to win, Mama. I know we are. She wished she shared his certainty. After Toby returned to bed, Clara walked outside. The night was cold and clear, stars scattered across the sky like spilled salt. She stood in the mission courtyard, breathing the frozen air, trying to quiet the storm inside her. Footsteps behind her. She didn't turn. You should sleep, Elijah said. Tomorrow's going to be long. I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see Samuel. She wrapped her arms around herself. I see him the morning he left. He kissed me goodbye like always, said he'd be back by supper. Her voice broke. He never came back. Elijah moved to stand beside her, not touching, just present. Tell me about him, the good parts. Clara was quiet for a moment, then slowly words began to come. He was terrible at cards, lost every hand he ever played, but he kept playing anyway because he loved the company. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. He sang off key, loudly, usually at the worst possible moments. The children used to beg him to stop. Did he? Never. Said music was meant to be shared even if it wasn't pretty. Clara's smile faded. He built our cabin with his own hands. Took him 2 years. Every night he'd come in covered with sawdust, exhausted but so proud. He'd show me what he'd done that day, a window frame, a door hinge, a shelf for my books. Her throat tightened. He made that place for us, for our family, and now Kingsley wants to take it. He won't. You keep saying that. Because I believe it. Elijah turned to face her. The starlight caught the silver in his hair, the lines around his eyes. I've spent 5 years running from a fight I should have had. 5 years telling myself it wasn't my business, wasn't my place. His voice roughened. I'm not running anymore. Clara looked at him, really looked. The grief in his eyes, the steel beneath it. The way he stood like a man who'd finally found something worth standing for. Why me? She asked. Of all the people Kingsley's hurt, why fight for me? Elijah was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because you remind me of everything I lost, and everything I still want. He took a breath. Because Martha would have loved you, would have called you brave and stubborn and right. Another breath. Because when I look at you, Clara, I see someone worth fighting beside, worth fighting for. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. She should step back, should put distance between them. Samuel had been gone barely 7 months. It was too soon, too fast, too everything. But she didn't step back. Elijah. You don't have to say anything. He held up a hand. I'm not asking for anything. Not now. Not yet. His eyes held hers. I just wanted you to know. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever comes after, you're not alone. You won't ever be alone again. Clara felt tears spilling down her cheeks. She didn't try to stop them. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. Elijah nodded. Then slowly, deliberately, he reached out and wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. The touch was gentle, almost reverent. Get some sleep, he said softly. I'll keep watch. Clara went back inside, but at the door she turned. Elijah. He looked at her. When this is over, when we've won. She took a breath. I'd like to know you better, if that's something you'd want. His face changed. Something like hope flickered there, something like joy. I'd like that too. She went inside. Behind her, she heard him settle against the wall, beginning his vigil, and for the first time in 7 months, when Clara closed her eyes, she saw something other than loss. She saw a future. Dawn broke cold and bright. Sunday, the day of judgment. Clara dressed carefully in her one good dress, black wool mended at the cuffs, the same dress she'd worn to Samuel's funeral. She braided her hair the way her mother had taught her, pinned it up. Looked at herself in Father Miguel's small mirror. The woman who stared back was thinner than she remembered. Harder. There were new lines around her eyes, new shadows beneath them. 7 months of grief and fear had carved themselves into her face, but her eyes were steady, clear, ready. Toby appeared in the doorway dressed in his Sunday clothes. His hair was slicked back with water. He looked older than 10, looked like the man he would become. I'm ready, Mama. I know you are. Clara knelt, adjusted his collar. Whatever happens today, I want you to know how proud I am of you. How proud your father would be. Toby's lip trembled, just for a second. Then his jaw firmed. We're going to win. Yes, we are. Emmy came running in rag doll in hand, oblivious to the weight of the day. Father Miguel followed his vestments crisp, his face grave. The town's already gathering, he said. They've set up the hearing in the public square. Must be 200 people there already. Clara's stomach clenched. 200. The whole county come to watch. Is Elijah waiting outside, with Prudy and Edgar? Father Miguel touched her arm. You have allies, Clara, more than you know. She gathered her children, gathered her courage, and stepped out into the light. The walk to the square felt endless. People lined the street watching in silence. Clara kept her eyes forward, her children's hands in hers. She didn't look at the faces, didn't want to see the judgment there. The public square had been transformed. Benches arranged in rows. A platform at one end where Judge Crawford already sat, his face inscrutable. And at a table to the left, Marshal Kingsley flanked by 2 men Clara didn't recognize. Lawyers, probably. Brought in from somewhere bigger. Somewhere that didn't know what he really was. Elijah met her at the edge of the crowd. His face was calm, but his eyes were fierce. You ready? Clara looked at the platform. At Crawford's cold eyes. At Kingsley's confident smirk. at the hundreds of faces turned toward her, waiting to see what would happen. Yes. She walked forward, Toby and Emmy beside her, and took her place at the table opposite Kingsley. Prudy sat behind her, Edgar beside Prudy, Father Miguel at the end of the row, and Elijah standing just behind Clara's chair. Close enough to touch, close enough to steady. Judge Crawford banged his gavel. The crowd fell silent. This hearing is now in session. Matter of foreclosure. First Texas Trust versus the estate of Samuel Brennan. Crawford's voice was flat, bored. Mr. Kingsley, present your case. Kingsley rose, smooth, polished, every inch the respectable banker. Your Honor, the facts are simple. Samuel Brennan borrowed $1,400 from my bank in 1874. The loan was secured against his property. Upon his unfortunate death, the debt transferred to his widow, who has failed to make payments. He spread his hands. The bank is merely seeking what it is owed. Crawford nodded. Mrs. Brennan. Your response. Clara stood. Her legs felt like water, but her voice came out clear. Everything Mr. Kingsley just said is a lie. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Crawford's gavel banged. Explain yourself, Mrs. Brennan. My husband never borrowed money from Mr. Kingsley's bank. The debt Mr. Kingsley claims doesn't exist. Clara reached into her satchel, pulled out the documents. I have here the original deed to our property, signed by my husband and myself in December 1874. 2 proprietors. No liens, no debts, no connection to Marshall Kingsley whatsoever. She stepped forward, placed the papers on Crawford's desk. The judge's eyes flickered. Something shifted in his expression. I also have copies of the deed Mr. Kingsley filed with the Territorial Land Office. A forgery. You can see the differences clearly. The handwriting doesn't match, the ink is fresher, and my husband's distinctive signature has been poorly imitated. She placed the second set of papers beside the first. Crawford leaned forward, studying them. Furthermore, Clara's voice strengthened. I have testimony from Edgar Coombs, former clerk of the Land Office, who witnessed my husband sign the original deed and can confirm that Marshall Kingsley was not present. Edgar rose from his seat. His voice carried across the silent square. I was there, Your Honor. December 1874. Samuel Brennan signed that deed with his wife. 2 proprietors, no one else. Kingsley didn't show up until after they'd left. Crawford's face had gone pale. He glanced at Kingsley. Something passed between them, fear, warning, desperation. Mr. Kingsley, Crawford said carefully, how do you respond to these allegations? Kingsley rose. His composure was cracking. Clara could see it, the twitch at the corner of his eye, the tension in his shoulders. These documents are forgeries, Your Honor. Created by a grieving widow desperate to hold on to property she cannot afford. He gestured toward Clara. Mrs. Brennan has been through a terrible tragedy. Her judgment is clearly impaired. My judgment is fine. Clara turned to face the crowd. And I'm not the only one Mr. Kingsley has tried to steal from. She pulled out Hiram's journal, held it up. This journal was kept by Hiram Holloway, clerk of courts, for 18 years. Before his death, he documented every transaction Marshall Kingsley made, every forged deed, every stolen property, every widow he cheated. She opened the journal, began to read. Widow Hanson, February 1876. Original deed showed her as sole proprietor. Filed deed showed Kingsley as co-proprietor. She sold for $150. Kingsley resold for $1,400. Gasps from the crowd. Clara kept reading. Widow Dalton, August 1876. Same pattern. Widow Morrison, November 1876. Widow Garrett, March 1877. With each name, the murmurs grew louder. People were looking at Kingsley now, really looking. The mask was slipping. 8 families, Clara said. 8 widows. Over $12,000 stolen. All documented. All witnessed. All true. Crawford's gavel banged. Mrs. Brennan, this is highly irregular. What's irregular is a judge who takes bribes from a thief. Clara's voice rang across the square. I know about your son, Judge Crawford. I know Kingsley paid his gambling debts. I know you owe him. But the whole county is watching now. And they're going to remember what you do today. The crowd erupted. Voices shouting, people standing. Crawford's gavel banged again and again, but no one was listening. Kingsley was on his feet. This is slander lies I demand. You demand nothing. A new voice cut through the chaos. Deputy Jessup stepped forward. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. I have something to say, Your Honor. The crowd went quiet. Crawford stared at his deputy. Kingsley's face had gone white. Deputy Jessup, Crawford said carefully, this isn't the time. This is exactly the time. Jessup turned to face the crowd. His hands were shaking, but he didn't stop. 7 months ago, Marshal Kingsley sent me to the Brennan homestead, told me to deliver a message, warned Samuel Brennan one last time to sell his land. Jessup, Kingsley's voice was sharp. Warning. I delivered the message. Samuel refused. I left. Jessup's voice cracked. The next morning he was dead. Silence. Absolute silence. Kingsley told me it was an accident, told me to forget what I'd seen, what I knew. Tears streamed down Jessup's face. But I can't forget. I can't live with it anymore. He looked at Clara. Mrs. Brennan, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Clara couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The world had narrowed to this moment, this truth finally spoken aloud. Samuel. Murdered. And the man who'd done it standing 10 feet away. Kingsley broke. This is absurd. He lunged toward Jessup. You're lying. You're all lying. Elijah moved. Fast. His body between Kingsley and Clara. His hand on the banker's chest pushing him back. That's enough. Kingsley's eyes were wild, trapped. You don't understand. The railroad, the water rights. It was supposed to be simple. He was supposed to sell. But he didn't. Clara found her voice. He chose us. His family, his children. He chose something you'll never understand. Kingsley stared at her. All the polish gone. All the pretense stripped away. Just a small, desperate man who'd destroyed lives for money. You can't prove any of this, he whispered. We just did. Clara gestured to the crowd. 200 witnesses. Every person here heard what Jessup said, heard what's in this journal. She stepped closer. It's over, Marshal. You're finished. Crawford's gavel came down one final time. His voice was shaking. Marshal Wade Kingsley, based on the evidence presented and the testimony given, I am remanding you into custody, pending full investigation by territorial authorities. He swallowed hard. Sheriff, take him. 2 men moved forward. Kingsley didn't resist. All the fight had drained out of him. He looked old suddenly, broken. As they led him past Clara, he stopped. His eyes met hers. I built an empire, he said quietly. 20 years of work, and you destroyed it in 20 minutes. Clara looked at him, at the man who'd stolen her husband, stolen her land, tried to steal her children. No, she said, you destroyed it yourself. The day you decided other people's lives were worth less than your profits. They took him away. The crowd parted. And Clara stood in the center of the square surrounded by 200 witnesses, Hiram's journal clutched to her chest. She'd won. Somehow, against everything, she'd won. Toby slammed into her arms, wrapping tight around her waist. Emmy followed, crying and laughing at the same time. Clara dropped to her knees, gathered them close, and let herself finally break. Mama. Toby's voice was muffled against her shoulder. Mama, you did it. We did it, she whispered. All of us. Together. She looked up through her tears, saw Elijah standing there, his eyes bright with something she'd remember for the rest of her life. saw Prudy wiping her face with a handkerchief, saw Edgar nodding slowly solemnly, saw Father Miguel making the sign of the cross. And beyond them, the crowd. Not hostile anymore, not judgmental, just people, ordinary people who'd watched the truth win. Mrs. Dalton pushed through to the front, the same woman who'd whispered about Clara on the church steps, the same woman who'd let her son push Lily May. "Mrs. Brennan." Her voice was thick. I didn't know. I should have. It's all right." Clara rose, still holding her children. "None of us knew. I'm sorry. For everything." Clara looked at her, at the guilt on her face, the shame, and she thought of everything she could say, everything Mrs. Dalton deserved to hear. But Samuel's voice echoed in her memory. "Forgiveness isn't about them, Clara. It's about us, about who we want to be." "Thank you," Clara said simply, "for being here today." Mrs. Dalton nodded, stepped back. Others surged forward, hands reaching out, voices offering apologies, congratulations, support. Clara accepted them all. But her eyes kept finding Elijah. Standing at the edge of the crowd, watching her with that look. The one that made her feel seen. The one that made her feel like maybe, just maybe, there was still good left in the world. Night fell over the square. The crowd dispersed slowly, reluctantly, as if they didn't want the story to end. Clara sat on a bench, her children asleep on either side of her, their heads on her shoulders. Elijah approached, sat down beside them, said nothing for a long while. "It's over," Clara finally said. "The hard part is." He looked at her. "What comes next won't be easy. Rebuilding. Healing. Learning to live without looking over your shoulder." "I know. You won't be alone, though." His voice was quiet, steady. "If you want company." Clara looked at him, at this man who'd stood beside her when everyone else turned away, who'd fought for her when he had nothing to gain, who'd looked at her and seen something worth saving. "I'd like that," she said. "Company." Elijah's face softened. He reached over, gently, brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "Then you'll have it. For as long as you want." She leaned against him, just slightly, just enough. And for the first time in 7 months, Clara Brennan felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Peace. 3 weeks had passed since the hearing. The snow had begun to melt, revealing patches of brown earth, stubborn grass pushing through where the frost had retreated. Clara stood at the window of her cabin, watching the sun climb over the hills. Her cabin. Still hers. Finally, truly hers. The territorial marshal had come and gone, taking Kingsley to Austin for trial. The evidence was overwhelming: Hiram's journal, Edgar's testimony, Jessup's confession. They said he'd hang. Clara didn't know how to feel about that. Justice maybe, closure perhaps, but nothing would bring Samuel back. "Mama," Toby's voice came from behind her. "Mr. Darrow's wagon is coming up the road." Clara's heart lifted. She smoothed her hair, caught herself doing it, smiled. "Well, don't just stand there. Go help him with whatever he's brought." Toby ran out, Emmy at his heels. Clara watched them go. These children who'd been through so much, who'd stood beside her when the world turned against them. They were stronger now, different. But still, children still capable of joy. She met Elijah at the door. He carried a bundle of lumber over one shoulder, a sack of nails in his free hand. "Porch rails sagging," he said by way of greeting. "Noticed it last week. Figured I'd fix it before it collapses and drops someone in the mud." "You don't have to." "I know." His eyes met hers, warm, steady. "I want to." He'd been coming every few days since the hearing. Always with a reason, a loose board, a leaky shingle, a fence post that needed replacing. Never asking for anything. Never pushing. Just present. Clara had stopped protesting. Had started looking forward to the sound of his wagon on the road. "Coffee's hot," she said. "When you're ready." Elijah set down the lumber, straightened. I could use a cup first, if you're offering. They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Clara had pored over Hiram's journal, where she'd planned her fight against Kingsley. It felt different now, lighter. Railroad surveyor came by yesterday, Elijah said. Asked about the easement. Clara nodded. They offered $800 for the right-of-way across the eastern section. You going to take it? I'm thinking about it. She wrapped her hands around her cup. Samuel always said the railroad would come. Said when it did, this land would be worth something. Turns out he was right. He usually was, from what I hear. Clara smiled. It didn't hurt as much anymore remembering. He was wrong about plenty of things. But the important stuff, family land, what matters, he got that right. Elijah was quiet for a moment. Then, I've been thinking. Dangerous habit. So I'm told. He set down his cup. About what comes next. For you. For the children. He paused. For me. Clara's breath caught. And what have you decided? That I'm tired of my empty house. Tired of eating alone, sleeping alone, waking up to silence. His eyes found hers. That I'd like to stop visiting and start staying. If you'd have me. The words hung in the air between them. Clara felt her heart racing. Elijah, I'm not trying to replace Samuel. I know what he meant to you. I know what you had together. His voice roughened. But Martha's been gone 5 years. Samuel's been gone 8 months. We've both buried people we loved. Maybe it's time to start building something new. Clara thought of Samuel, of the life they'd made together, of the dreams they'd shared, the ones that ended with him lying dead in a field. And she thought of Elijah, of his steady presence, his quiet strength, the way he looked at her like she was something worth fighting for. The children, she said slowly. They'd have to agree. They'd have to want this. I know. And if they don't, I'll understand. Elijah reached across the table, took her hand. But I've seen how they look at me, Clara. Toby asking about cattle brands. Emmy showing me her drawings. They're not afraid of me. And I think maybe they're starting to see me as something more than just a neighbor. Clara squeezed his fingers. They lost their father. They need time. I'll give them all the time they need. I'm not going anywhere. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. Unless you want me to. No. The word came out before she could stop it. No, I don't want you to go. Elijah's face softened. Something like hope flickered there. Something like joy. Then I'll stay. They sat in silence, hands linked across the table. Outside, Clara could hear Toby and Emmy laughing, the sound of their voices carrying through the open window. We should tell them, she said finally. Together. See what they think. Agreed. Elijah stood, pulled her to her feet. But first, he kissed her. Gentle. Tentative. A question more than a statement. Clara answered it. Her hand found the back of his neck, drew him closer. She tasted coffee and winter air and something else. Something that felt like beginning. When they finally pulled apart, Elijah's eyes were bright. Been wanting to do that for weeks. Why didn't you? Wasn't sure you were ready. Wasn't sure I was either. He touched her face. But I am now. So am I. They walked outside together. Toby was stacking the lumber Elijah had brought Emmy, handing him pieces one at a time. They looked up as Clara and Elijah approached. Mr. Darrow? Toby's voice was careful. You staying for supper? If your mother'll have me. She will. Toby glanced at Clara, something knowing in his eyes. She always does. Clara knelt beside her son. Toby, there's something we need to talk about. All of us. Emmy abandoned the lumber, ran over. What is it, Mama? Is something wrong? No, baby, nothing's wrong. Clara took a breath. Mr. Darrow, Elijah has been helping us a lot these past weeks. Coming by. Fixing things. Being here. We know, Toby said. His face was unreadable. He'd like to keep doing that. Keep being here. More than just visiting. Clara looked between her children. How would you feel about that? Emmy tilted her head. Like a papa. The question hit Clara in the chest. She opened her mouth, but Elijah spoke first. Not like your papa. Nobody could ever be that. He knelt beside Clara, putting himself at the children's level. But maybe like a friend. Someone who cares about you, looks out for you, helps your mama when she needs it. Toby studied him, long, searching. You were there, at the hearing, when Mama fought for our house. I was. You believed her, when nobody else did. I did. Why? Elijah didn't hesitate. Because your father saved my life once, and because your mother reminded me what courage looks like, and because... He glanced at Clara, then back to Toby. Because some things are worth fighting for. Your family is one of them. Toby was quiet. His jaw worked just like Samuel's used to when he was thinking hard. My papa was a good man, he said finally, the best I ever knew. And you won't try to make us forget him. Never. Elijah's voice was firm. I'll help you remember him, tell you stories about him. Make sure Emmy knows what kind of man he was, even when she's too young to remember herself. Emmy tugged at Elijah's sleeve. Will you teach me to ride a horse, a real one, not the old mare? If your mama says it's okay. Mama. Emmy's eyes were huge, hopeful. Clara felt tears burning. We'll see, baby. Toby still hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. The silence stretched. Then slowly, he extended his hand. Welcome to the family, Mr. Darrow. Elijah took it, shook it like he was shaking hands with a man, not a boy. Thank you, Toby. I'll try to be worthy of it. Clara gathered all three of them into her arms. Elijah surprised at first, then relaxing into it. Emmy giggling. Toby stiff for a moment, before softening his thin arms wrapping around them. They stood like that for a long time. 4 people broken in different ways, finding something whole. The railroad easement sold for $800. Clara put most of it away for the children's future schooling maybe, or land of their own when they were grown. The rest she used to rebuild. New shutters for the cabin. A proper chicken coop. Seed for spring planting. Elijah moved his things over in stages. A trunk of clothes. His saddle. The small wooden box that held Martha's wedding ring. I want the children to have it someday, he said, showing it to Clara. Martha would have wanted that. She always hoped for children of her own. Clara touched the ring. Simple gold worn smooth with years. She'd be proud of you, what you're doing here. I hope so. Elijah closed the box. I hope she knows I didn't forget her. That loving you doesn't mean I stopped loving her. It doesn't, Clara said. Love isn't a finite thing. It grows, changes, makes room for more. She thought of Samuel, of the love they'd built in this cabin on this land. It was still here, would always be here, but now there was room for something new, something different, not a replacement, an addition. Spring came slowly. The snow retreated to the highest peaks. The Pecos River swelled with meltwater. Wildflowers appeared in the meadows, bluebonnets and Indian paintbrush and primrose spreading color across the brown earth. Clara planted her garden. Beans, squash, tomatoes. She worked the soil with her hands, feeling it warm beneath her fingers. Elijah worked beside her, not talking much, just present, steady. My wife used to garden, he said one morning. Martha, she grew roses, said they were the only civilized thing about this territory. Did they survive? A few. Still growing at the old place. I check on them sometimes. He paused. Maybe we could transplant some here, if you'd like. Clara smiled. I'd like that. A piece of Martha growing in Samuel's garden. Our garden? Elijah corrected gently. Theirs and ours. The word settled over Clara like a warm blanket. Ours. She'd spent so long fighting alone, protecting alone, surviving alone. The idea of building something together, it still felt strange. But good strange. Toby learned to ride properly that spring. Elijah taught him on a steady gelding, patient and firm. Clara watched from the porch, her heart in her throat every time the horse moved faster than a walk. He's a natural, Elijah said after one lesson. Got his father's seat. And his stubbornness. That too. Elijah smiled. Won't be long before he's better than me. Emmy took longer to warm up. She was shy around the horses, preferred to stay close to Clara, help with the smaller tasks. But slowly, day by day, she began to trust. One afternoon, Clara found her in the barn talking to Elijah's horse. You're very big, Emmy was saying, her voice serious. But I don't think you're mean. Are you? The horse nickered softly. Emmy giggled. He says he's not mean, she reported to Clara. He says he likes carrots and being brushed. Does he now? Uh-huh. Emmy stroked the horse's nose with one small hand. Mr. Elijah says I can learn to ride when I'm bigger. He promised. Clara knelt beside her daughter. And do you want to learn? Emmy considered this. Papa never taught me. He said I was too little. You were, but you're growing every day. I know. Emmy's face grew serious. Mama, is it okay that I like Mr. Elijah? Clara's heart clenched. Of course it is, baby. Why wouldn't it be? Because of Papa. I don't want Papa to be sad. Clara pulled her daughter close. Your papa would want you to be happy. He'd want you to have people who love you and take care of you. She kissed Emmy's hair. Loving Mr. Elijah doesn't mean you love Papa any less. There's room in your heart for both of them. Emmy thought about this. Like how I love you and Toby both. Exactly like that. Okay. Emmy nodded, satisfied. Then I think it's okay. She ran off to find Toby, leaving Clara alone in the barn. The horse watched her with soft eyes. Thank you, Clara said to the empty air. To Samuel, wherever he was. Thank you for giving me them, for giving me this. The wind stirred the hay. For just a moment she could almost feel him there, watching, approving. Then the moment passed and she was alone again. But not lonely, not anymore. Summer brought the trial. Clara traveled to Austin with Elijah, leaving the children with Prudy. 3 days in the territorial court watching Marshal Kingsley finally face justice. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. The man who'd terrorized a county, destroyed families, murdered without consequence. He sat in the defendant's box like a deflated balloon. Clara testified, told the whole story from the beginning, the forged deed, the threats, the break-in at Prudy's, the night Samuel died. The jury listened. 12 men, their faces unreadable. When it was over, when the verdict came guilty on all counts, Clara felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just emptiness where the rage had been. He'll hang, Elijah said as they left the courthouse, probably within the month. I know. Does it help knowing he'll pay? Clara thought about it. It doesn't bring Samuel back, doesn't undo what he did to all those families. She took Elijah's hand. But it means he can't hurt anyone else. That has to count for something. They walked to the hotel in silence. That night Clara dreamed of Samuel. He was standing in their garden the way he used to, covered in dirt, smiling that crooked smile. You did good, he said. I miss you. I know, but you're going to be okay. He reached out, touched her face. His hand was warm, real. Elijah's a good man. He'll take care of you. No one can take care of me like you did. No. But that's all right. Different isn't worse, just different. Samuel's smile softened. Love him, Clara. Let yourself be happy. That's all I ever wanted for you. What about you? I'm at peace, watching over you, all of you, from wherever I am. He started to fade. Tell the children I love them, that I'll always love them. Samuel. Live, Clara. Really live, for both of us. She woke with tears on her face and sunlight streaming through the window. Elijah was already awake, watching her. You were talking in your sleep, he said softly. Saying his name. I dreamed about him. Clara wiped her eyes. He told me to be happy. Good advice. I'm trying. She reached for Elijah's hand. I'm trying. Fall came. The leaves turned gold and red. The harvest was good, better than good. The first real abundance since Samuel's death. Clara stood at her kitchen window, watching Elijah and Toby work together in the field. They moved in rhythm now, anticipating each other, a team. Emmy sat at the table, laboriously forming letters on her slate. She'd started lessons with Father Miguel, learning to read and write. Every day she came home with new words, new discoveries. Mama, look! She held up the slate. I wrote my name. Clara examined it. Emmeline Brennan spelled out in wobbly chalk letters. That's beautiful, baby. Father Miguel says I'm smart, says I learn fast. You are smart, like your father. Emmy beamed. Then carefully she erased the slate and started again. This time she wrote something different. Family. That's us, she said proudly. You and me and Toby and Mr. Elijah. Clara's eyes stung. Yes, baby, that's us. The wedding was small, just family and close friends. Father Miguel performed the ceremony in the same church where he'd married Clara and Samuel 13 years before. Clara wore her good dress, not the black wool anymore, but a new one, pale blue, that Prudy had helped her make. Elijah wore a suit that had belonged to his father, cleaned and pressed, and still too big in the shoulders. Toby stood beside Elijah as his second. Emmy scattered wildflowers down the aisle. Do you take this woman, Father Miguel intoned, to have and to hold from this day forward? I do. Elijah's voice was steady. Sure. And do you, Clara, take this man? She looked at Elijah, at this good, steady, patient man who'd stood beside her through the worst of it, who'd fought for her, protected her, loved her not in spite of her past, but alongside it. I do. Father Miguel smiled. Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Elijah kissed her, gentle at first, then deeper. The small congregation, Prudy Edgar Deputy Jessup, with his new badge as sheriff, a handful of neighbors who'd stood with them at the hearing, erupted in applause. When they finally pulled apart, Emmy was tugging at Clara's skirt. Does this mean Mr. Elijah is my papa now? Clara knelt. He's your stepfather. It's a little different. Can I call him Papa? Clara looked at Elijah. He nodded, his eyes bright. If you want to, baby, and if he's okay with it. I'd be honored. Elijah said, his voice rough. Emmy threw her arms around his legs. Papa Elijah. Toby hung back, watching. Clara caught his eye. You don't have to call him anything you don't want to, she said quietly. I know. Toby was silent for a moment. Then slowly he extended his hand to Elijah. Congratulations, sir. Elijah shook it. Thank you, Toby. I'll call you Eli, if that's okay. Papa doesn't feel right yet. Eli's perfect. Elijah's hand rested on Toby's shoulder. And whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here. Toby nodded. Something passed between them, an understanding, a promise. Clara watched her family, her new family, built from the pieces of what was lost, and felt something she hadn't felt in over a year, whole. Winter returned. But this time Clara watched the snowfall without fear. The cabin was warm. The pantry was full. Her children were safe and fed and loved. She stood at the window watching the flakes drift down, covering the land in white. Behind her, the fire crackled. Elijah sat in Samuel's old chair, their chair now reading to Emmy. Toby was at the table doing sums on his slate. "Mama." Emmy's voice was sleepy. "Tell us a story." Clara turned from the window. "What kind of story?" "A true one, about Papa." "Which Papa?" Emmy considered this. "Both of them." Clara crossed to the hearth, settled into her chair. Elijah shifted, making room for her to lean against him. "Once upon a time," she began, "there was a man named Samuel who dreamed of building a home." "Our home," Toby said without looking up. "Yes, our home. He built it with his own hands, board by board, nail by nail. And he filled it with love." Emmy snuggled closer to Elijah. "What happened then?" "Then he met a woman. A stubborn woman who didn't know how to quit." "You," Emmy said. "Me." Clara smiled. They built a life together, had 2 beautiful children, and when hard times came— "The mean man," Emmy whispered. "Yes, the mean man tried to take everything away, but the woman and her children fought back, and they won." "Because they had help," Toby added. "From Mr. Edgar and Miss Prudy and Papa Elijah." "That's right." Clara reached over, squeezed Elijah's hand. "They learned that you can't fight every battle alone, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let other people help." Emmy yawned. "Is that the end?" "No, baby. That's just the beginning." Clara looked around the room, at her children, her husband, her home. "The story keeps going. Every day we wake up, every meal we share, every storm we survive, that's all part of it. Will it have a happy ending?" Clara thought about the question, about everything she'd been through, the loss, the fear, the long nights alone wondering if she'd make it. And then she thought about this moment, this warmth, this love. "I think it already does," she said. "I think it has a happy ending right now." Emmy's eyes drifted closed. Within minutes, she was asleep against Elijah's chest. "I'll carry her up," he said softly. "Thank you." He rose, Emmy cradled in his arms, and climbed the ladder to the loft. Clara heard him murmuring to her the sound of small feet settling into bed. Toby set down his slate. "Mama." "Yes." "Do you think Papa, my real Papa, do you think he's watching? From wherever he is?" Clara considered the question. "I do. I think he sees everything. And I think he's proud of you. Of all of us." Toby nodded slowly. "I still miss him. Even now. Even with Eli here." "I know, baby. So do I." Clara opened her arms. Toby came to her, folded himself into her embrace like he was still small. Missing someone doesn't stop just because life goes on. It just becomes part of you, part of who you are. Does it ever hurt less? Yes, slowly, day by day. She held him tighter. But even when it hurts, it's okay to be happy too. Your father would want that. Toby pulled back. His eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. "I love you, Mama. I love you too, more than anything." He climbed the ladder to join Emmy. Clara heard the rustle of blankets, the soft murmur of siblings settling in for the night. Elijah came back down, stood beside her chair. "Good day," he asked. "The best." She rose, took his hands. "Thank you." "For what?" "For being here, for staying, for loving us when you didn't have to." Elijah pulled her close. "I didn't have to, but I wanted to. There's a difference." "I know." She rested her head against his chest. "I know." They stood like that for a long time, watching the fire burn down to embers. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, the cabin held its warmth. Ready for bed? Elijah finally asked. Almost. Clara moved to the mantel, picked up the framed deed that hung there. 2 names, Samuel's and hers, the document that had nearly destroyed them and ultimately saved them. I want to add something, she said. What, another name? She traced Samuel's signature. I want to add you, officially, so the deed shows all of us, Samuel, me, and you. Elijah was quiet for a moment. Are you sure this was his land? His dream? It was his dream. Now it's ours. Clara turned to face him. He'd want this, Elijah. He'd want you to be part of it. Elijah's eyes glistened in the firelight. Then yes, I'd be honored. Clara hung the deed back on the wall. Tomorrow she'd go to the land office, file the amendment, make it official. But tonight it was enough to know, to believe. Come to bed, she said. They climbed the ladder together. In the darkness, Clara could hear her children breathing. Peaceful, safe. She settled into Elijah's arms, felt his heartbeat against her back. Thank you, she whispered again. For what? For the happy ending. It's not an ending, he murmured against her hair. It's just the beginning of a new chapter. Clara smiled into the darkness. Outside, the snow continued to fall. The land that Samuel had dreamed of, that Clara had fought for, that Elijah had helped protect it, lay quiet under its white blanket, waiting for spring. And in the cabin built by one good man and protected by another, a family slept. Not perfect, not untouched by grief, but whole. Together. Home. Clara Brennan had learned something in the long months of fighting for her land. She'd learned that the truth was like water. You could dam it up for a while, but eventually it found a way through. She'd learned that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the decision that something else mattered more. And she'd learned that love, real love, wasn't a finite thing. It grew, changed, made room for more. The land remembered who worked it, who planted in faith, who stayed when staying was hardest. And those who tended it, who sank their hands deep and built for tomorrow, they were the ones who truly owned it. Not in law alone, but in something older. Something that survived courts and judges and men with silver pens. The land remembered, and so would she.